Hi, my name is Abraham and I'm your big brother in recovery, coming back to you with another educational video that hopefully will help you to achieve sustainable sobriety. Now, if this is your first time on the channel, we ask that you please check us out first. Don't believe nothing we say, but if we are telling you what the big book is saying, we ask that you subscribe. I believe that's fair. And after you have subscribed, would you kindly click the like button, the thumbs up, because what that'll do is that will help us to achieve step 12 by carrying the message to those who are still suffering. And without further ado, as we often say, we like to dive right into it because I don't like to waste time merely because time is the only resource that none of us can get back. Now, either we are making use of time or we're wasting time. As I often say, there's no such thing as time management. You cannot manage time, but you can manage yourself. See, the whispers lied to me when they said it only gets better in time. No, it only gets better if I make use of the time, simply because we all have 86,000 seconds a week, and we all have 168 hours a week. And it depends on how we use those hours to be productive or to be non-productive. And I personally choose to make use of my time. And I don't want to waste your time, okay? So, as we often say, let's get right to it. Many of you have sent messages back, comments. You text me, some of you that know my number, you text me and told me that you really got a lot out of what we shared as far as the Sobriety Society International Challenge is concerned. And many of you have taken that challenge. To date, over 250 people have taken that challenge. And I delivered from what you told me. I'm not marking my own papers. What you told me, I gave you something in the last video, which was entitled Step 1 Overview. Now, I told you I had many surprises for you this year, and you're going to get a few of them. I'm going to do something called Don't Believe the Hype. And I'm not using the word hype as a derogatory word because we want to remove the negative stigma that's attached to recovery. So we don't want to say degrading things, but we want to say upgrading things, because this is a program not of condemnation, but of reconciliation. So with all that being said, thank you so much for those of you who have learned a few things from what I shared with you, because collectively we're all learning as we go through this. So what I like to do is do something called digging deep. Right? Now we're going to go a little deeper into step 1. And then I'm going to do something, I'm thinking about it, call it digging deeper, when I go into the 12 and 12 and show you about step 1. Step 1 is simple. It's all about the principle of being honest. What is honesty? Honesty is the ability to accept your reality. You remember, recovery was 2 words: surrender and acceptance, or acceptance and surrender. Now, I like to show you something. As a sponsor, sponsors, I'm talking to you about the newcomers, because there are only 2 types of people on this channel: those who have recovered and those who are recovering. Now watch this. Recovered means you've accepted the spiritual solution. Recovering is you haven't gotten to the point to where as though you've recovered, which is step 9. The first 9 steps help you recover. 10, 11, and 12 keep you recovered. Now, let's keep looking. I want to talk about sponsorship real quick, and then we're going to do some digging deep into step 1. Let's go to our book when it's on page 90 of our big book. And let's look at the first paragraph. When you discover a prospect or sponsee for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This is advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they are dealing with a sick person. Now, I want to show you something else. If you look at page 95, and I want to look at the second paragraph. If he is not interested in your solution, if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. If he is sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. Why? Because this book contains the precise way to recover. You remember page 29? Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we have recovered. Watch this. After doing that, he must decide for himself, step 3, whether he wants to go on. He should not be pushed or prodded, but you, his wife, or his wife or his friends. If he is to find God, the desire must come from within. If he thinks he can do the job in some other way or prefers some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience. We have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach or a process that worked with us. But point out that we alcoholics we alcoholics have much in common, and that you would like in any case to be friendly and let it go at that. Now, there are 3 questions you need to ask a sponsee before you sponsor them, and here are the questions. These are the qualifying questions. Number 1, do you think you have a problem? That's a yes/no answer. Second question, do you want to do anything about the problem? Yes or no answer. You remember, everything is simple. And the third question, what are you willing to do about it? And here you go. If you get the answer yes, yes, and anything, and you feel that the person is ready to follow directions without question, you both are ready to continue all the way. If you don't get answers, yes, yes, and anything, go to page 96. Let's look at page 96. Because see, you're not babysitting people. This is for people that want it, not need it. Because we know everybody needs it, but everybody doesn't want it. First paragraph on 96. Do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. There's that at once right away. Search out another alcoholic and try again. Why? You're sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. So that's telling me I'm looking for somebody desperate and eager to accept right now what I offer. What do I offer? A solution to what? Alcoholism. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. That sounds like like how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. Watch this. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half-dozen prospects or sponsees. He often says that if he had continued to work on them instead of letting God, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chances. And that person was our founder, Bill W. Now, I want to get deep into some things here in our book, and I don't want to waste your time, but I'd like to take you forward to the first edition. This is always a good catalyst or a point of origin to start off with. And we want to read the first paragraph. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely, italicized print, why we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them those who are suffering from a hopeless state of mind and body, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary, no other proof. Let me give you some extra stuff. We think this account of our experience will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend or understand that the alcoholic is a very sick person, not just sick, very sick person. Why? Their mind is controlling their body, and their body is controlling their mind. And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. For all who? All people that are addicted. Because guess what? The addiction is a spiritual situation that only it's your addiction is not something physical. It's something spiritual, right? So guess what? The physical is not the problem, but the spiritual is. And I'll get to that again. So we just found out the main purpose of the book. Now, I wanted to share something with you last week that I didn't get a chance to share with you. Some of you may be saying, well, Abraham, you got over 40 years of being clean and sober. You should know all this. That's why I'm teaching it to you, because the more I learn, the less I find out I know. And as I told you, teaching is nothing but saying the same thing over and over again until learning takes place. So what I want to show you is similarities and differences. Always look for the similarities. Never look for the differences, merely because in the differences, you'll start to feel superior, right? But I like to look at things. You and I are the same, but I'm going to show you what we have in common and what our difference is. Watch this. If you would kindly go with me to triple X, 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 X. Let's get to X, X, X. And what we're going to see, let me get there first. What we're going to see on that page is something real interesting. On the 5th paragraph, notice this. This is what we all have in common. Watch this. All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. In other words, this phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people, the real alcoholic and the social one, and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been by any treatment which we are familiar, permanently eradicated, meaning cured, but we do recover. Watch this. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. That means clean. That gets you in the game, right? But watch this. Look at the top of the page, the next page. What is the solution? Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. Now go to page 17, talking about similarities, not differences. What we have in common is one is too many for both of us, and 1,000 isn't enough. But let me show you the difference that I have that may be a difference from what you have. The bottom of page 17. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered one common solution. We have a way out on which we can agree, absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. Here's the difference. I've accepted and taken the common solution, and most of you are still learning about it, or you're not ready to accept it right now. Because either you're going to recover or you're going to resume. There's no middle of the ground solution. You remember? Middle of the road solution. Now, we've gotten the similarity and difference out. I'm still dealing with step 1, going a little deeper. Watch this. Let's go to page 25. Page 25. What I'd like to show you now is we find a new way of living once we start to do this whole thing. Notice page 25, the 3rd paragraph. Watch this. Or the 2nd paragraph. If you are seriously alcoholic, as we were, I used to be, we believe there's no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible, and if we had passed into the region for which there is no return, through human aid, that means your sponsor, the fellowship, me, you, and nobody that looks like us, because no human power could relieve you of your alcoholism, but God could and would if he was sought. We have but 2 alternatives or 2 choices. One was to go onto the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness, not the subconscious, because currently, before you recover, you are a slave to your subconscious, which is beneath your conscious. But when you recover, you discover your conscious wants to recover, but your subconscious wants to do what it's familiar with. Watch this. Of our entire situation as best we could, and the other was to accept spiritual help. You ever notice the answer is always simple? Accept spiritual help. So now we have to find a new way of living, right? We have to find a spiritual way of living. Now, as I told you, alcoholism, let me show you what it is again. Because, see, a lot of people think if they just stop drinking, everything will be fine. That's why a man is unthinking if he thinks sobriety is enough. See, you're sober, now what? Let's look at the first paragraph on page 44, but the fourth line. If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, that's a question. Or, if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably an alcoholic or addicted, meaning one is too many and 1,000 isn't enough. You drink to get drunk. If that be the case, what's the case? You addicted. You may be suffering from an illness, not disease, which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Now notice something. Notice what it told us. A spiritual experience is the only thing that'll conquer it. You know what? Now we know what we need to do to recover. We must first have an entire psychic change. You remember what Dr. Silkworth said in the doctor's opinion? Until a person undergoes an entire psychic change, there's no hope for their recovery. And that's found on Roman numeral page XXIX. Look for it. You'll see it. But I'd like to take you to page 42. Go back a page, 42. And this is noteworthy for you to notice. And let's look at the second paragraph. If we recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, because the mind is killing the body and the body is killing the mind, what's missing? Spirit. Watch this. Then they outline the spiritual answer. Notice answer, conjunction, and program of action. That's step 3 through 12, which 100 of them had followed successfully. Isn't that something? Now notice something. Not only is a spiritual experience possible, it's guaranteed, right? It's guaranteed. Just keep an open mind. That's all we're asking you to do in step 1 is to be honest and just stay focused on the process. Page 43 tells us something else. No matter what my belief, there is still hope for me, right? Look at page 43 and let's look at, on page 44 rather, let's look at page 44 and let's look at the, where do I want to go? The third paragraph. But it isn't so different, or better yet still, let's look at the second. We're going to look at the third paragraph. To one who feels he's an atheist is one who wants proof, and one who is an agnostic. An agnostic wants proof. An atheist straight out doesn't believe. That's why there's a chapter to the agnostic and not a chapter to the atheist. Such an experience seems impossible. But to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he's an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. You remember, one is too many and 1,000 isn't enough? To be doomed to an alcoholic debt or to live on a spiritual basis, remember, accept spiritual help, are not always easy alternatives to face, but he's got to be honest. But it isn't so difficult. Remember Bill said on page 14, simple but not easy? About half our original fellowship were exactly that type. At first, some of us tried to avoid the issue, hoping against hope we were not true or real alcoholics. But after a while, we had to face the fact or the truth that we must find a spiritual basis of life or else. Perhaps it's going to be that way with you. But cheer up. Something like half of us thought we were atheists or agnostic. Our experience shows that you need not be disconcerted. That word in your big book dictionary means confused, upset, troubled, shaken. How about this? Or embarrassed, because there's nothing to be embarrassed about. But it lets us know that, watch this, not only is a spiritual experience possible, but we just need to keep on. And no matter what your belief is, there's still hope, because recovery is one word, hope. Now, all I need is to be honest, open-minded, and willing to believe that the program works. That's all I need to get the breakthrough. Now, let's see what we can learn about the spiritual solution. Look at page 45. This is interesting. You hear this all the time. People say, my name is so-and-so and I'm powerless, but I like to thank my higher power for being here. I'm not trying to be funny with nobody, but are they selling fast talking to slow thinking people? Because how can you be powerless? That's the problem, with a higher power, which is the solution. It doesn't make sense. Oil and water doesn't mix. Let's look at the first paragraph on page 45. It will justify what I just said. You remember, if it's not in the book, don't believe me. Lack of power, that was our dilemma or problem. We had to find a power by which we could live, not survive. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Obviously, here's a good question to pose in your next topic and discussion group instead of first 3 steps. Watch this. But where and how were we to find this power? That's a profound question. Well, page 55, paragraph 2 tells us where. Deep inside of every man, woman, boy, and girl is the fundamental or basic idea about God. Because we were fooling ourselves. We just haven't looked inside. We start looking outside. Now, look at the next question. How are we going to find that power? Well, that's step 3 through 12. The book clearly tells us what we need to do in order to recover. Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object or purpose is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. What's your problem? Self. That means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. Watch this. Why spiritual? Because only spiritual principles will change your psychology. Moral psychology. Principles before personalities. Because your personality is a learned behavior. It's not you. So you can unlearn it. That's why we got honesty as the first principle. And the principle simply says the ability to accept your reality. And what's your reality? You're addicted. And it means, of course, we're going to talk about God. Now, with that being said, I'd like to draw your attention to something. Let's look at how do you develop, or you can develop, your own conception of God. It never told you to believe in the God of your ancestors, even though there's nothing wrong with that if you do. But watch this. Go to page 46. So many people have a difficulty with this, but this is so simple that a fool could make an error and a blind man can see it. Page 46. Yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Watch this. Let us make haste to reassure ourselves. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, because that's the only thing in recovery that people respect is results. You think people would be listening to me if I had 40 years and if I had a relapse or something? No, it's uninterrupted sobriety. Watch this. Even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God, much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God, our own conception, however inadequate. So we, in our imperfections, are we perfect? Because who can comprehend God? Was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him as soon, right now, as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence. These are names Bill gave for God, spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of things. We begin to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek Him. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all inclusive, never exclusive, or forbidding those who earnestly seek it. It is open, we believe, to all men. Sounds like an equal opportunity to me. Now, I want to draw your attention to page 30. Let's look at what we need to do. We need to take more action because faith without works is dead. Look at the first paragraph, but I'd like to show you. Well, let's read the first paragraph. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were really alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by vain, countless attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drink is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing, and many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. Now watch this. In other words, this talks about how the mental obsession can kill a person, because remember, a mental obsession followed by a physical craving equals an allergic reaction. But the obsession is an idea that overrules every other idea. So you can obsess for 30 years and watch this. One day compulse when you put it in, consume it, and then you're off to the races. That's why we're never cured, but we can recover. Now, page 34. Let's go to page 34. I'd like to show you something on the second paragraph of 34. And what I'm going to show you is that's why we need an entire psychic change or a transformation of our mind or renew our mind, because watch this. When we come into recovery, our mind controls us. But when we recover, we discover that our spirit is us. Now our spirit controls our mind, because this is a spiritual, not religious program. Let's look at the second paragraph on page 34. For those who are unable to drink moderately, like myself, the question is how to stop altogether. That's entire abstinence. We're assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Third tradition. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends on the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. You remember, there's no chemical solution for your spiritual problem. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Why? Because it is a spiritual problem, a problem which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Remember page 44? This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. You can wish all you want. Your willpower won't work against this. That's why we need a power greater than ourselves to relieve us of this alcoholism. Now, we only do that, we have that spiritual experience only through working those steps. If we go to page 14, we'll see what Bill said, or what Bill did in the second paragraph on page 14. Bill recovered by doing this. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals made in those steps. But the moment I fully accept them, what did he say? The moment he did, what happened? The effect was electric. There was a sense of victory followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. Notice what he's going to say. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. What determined the gradually or the sudden and profound? If you read the statement, he said the moment you fully accept him. So the moment you fully accept the fact that you're powerless, you can start to recover, because watch this, you're being honest. All step one asked us to do was something real simple on page 30. Here again is the first step question, and it's simple. Second paragraph, we learn that we have to fully concede or admit to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. Now go to page 33, look at the first paragraph and the last 3 lines of that paragraph. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation or thinking of any kind, nor any lurking notion, ideas that someday we will be cured or immune to alcoholism. So, the first step question is real simple. Do you concede to your innermost self that you're alcoholic? If you can say yes to that question, again, congratulations, you just did step 1. If you have said no, I challenge you to get with your sponsor and keep doing some more reading. Now, what I want to ask your permission, I like to go even deeper into step 1 by bringing the 12 and 12 into the conversation on the next video, because the 12 and 12 is considered a companion tool or the New Testament to the big book. Now, I'll really give you some stuff. If you would like me to do that, just leave me a comment saying you do. Please click the thumbs up, share this with your friends, rewind it, go back, look at it, and know that if you can concede or admit to your innermost self that you're alcoholic, you just did step 1 according to the big book, because all it asked you to do was be honest. Look, my name is Abraham, and I'm your big brother in recovery, offering newcomers suggestions on how to recover. And please share these videos with your friends, and thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have a blessed day, and not only that, that you stay safe, both you and your family. Talk to you soon.